any age this is applicable to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And even if we can parallel, aging with being a teenager or being in some kind of growth stage, that one pops out for people, right? Because nobody goes, oh, I want to go back to those teenage years, right?
No. Yeah.
So I think, that's a good way to look at aging and those awkward teenage years. And awkward doesn't have to be a bad word. I've worked so much on language too for myself to recalibrate and redefine for myself the language that either I'm telling myself or hopefully with other people. And I think that that's important, how we expend our energy and our time and our awareness in a loving way, because then that does then extend out to others. But of course, like we've heard for a very long time, we tend to put others before us, right?
Yes.
And that was valued. Well, now is my time. Now is my time to say, hey, this is my time, and how do I want this last third of my life to be?
Welcome to Coming Into Focus. I am your host, Helen Tansey. So today we are joined by someone I deeply admire, Stephanie Spence. She is an award-winning author, a longtime yoga teacher, and a woman who has lived a life full of courage, curiosity, and beautiful reinvention. Her book, Yoga Wisdom, has touched so many people because she not only shares the wisdom of other yogis, but the book also reflects who she is at the core, which is honest, open, and committed to living with intention. What I love about Stephanie is the way she shares her experiences with such heart. She's real, she's thoughtful, and she has a way of reminding us what truly matters, and I am so thrilled that we have her here with us today. Stephanie, I am so honored and glad that you are here today, so thank you so much.
I am deeply honored that you even invited me to come and speak with you. I'm just your biggest fan, so thank you.
Well, right back at you. And you and I had the opportunity of, we met on Instagram and we started following each other and sort of would communicate through that. And then you came in a couple of weeks ago now with your beautiful partner, Michael, and I was able to photograph you and also him and you two together. And it was I was high for days after being with you.
Right back at you. Ditto. High for days, because the energy that you bring to the experience is incredible. And I have to say that you are the first person that I've reached out to via social media. And I think that says a lot. I think it says a lot about who you are and the work that you do. But more than that, I think it's interesting because all too often we look at social media in a really critical fashion. And here's an example of just getting to spend time. It was so incredible. And I'm so glad we're friends now, because I felt like we were friends before, but there is magic being together in person. And I think that is really important to remember, the magic happens in person.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much that I want to talk to you about, but before we can you tell I'm Canadian when I say about, because you're American? So did you notice that?
No, not really.
No.
In fact, unless somebody says A, and I love that. A kind of elicits a response like, really? We say, really? Oh my God, really? So
the other thing I do is I say, right. And I'm trying to stop doing that because I notice it a lot on the podcast. And I think, where did I get that from? And I'm from England originally, and I was visiting my mom, and she was talking to me. She was like, right. And I'm like, oh, that's where I get it from. It must be an English thing. So,
well, being an English person, you don't say mum. You say mom.
Yeah.
Did you intentionally unlearn that, or?
I don't. You know what? We moved over when I was young. So, I mean, there's certain things my boys always laugh. Like I say schedule. So there's certain things that I say, that are, that's what I
There's
was
your
brought up
telltale.
with. Yeah. Yeah. So do you mind sharing how old you are?
I am weeks away from 65.
Wonderful. And how does it
Yeah.
feel? Like, how do you feel about getting older? Is it something that you dread or worry about, or is it something that you're just sort of, just like, yes, bring it on?
I feel like I could take up way too much time just on this one question, so I'll try and be brief. But I have had the experience of every year getting better and better and better for me, even on a year that most people would say it was a train wreck. And the reason I'm mentioning that is I have studied ageism a little. And I used to say things like, oh, I want to be ageless. Well, that's actually a little bit of self harming in that statement because I am celebrating the fact that I am 65 now. 50, no big deal. Some people, I've heard a lot of stuff. I loved the 50s because it really was an alignment with so many other women that I hear talk about and men that I'm starting to let go of things and I'm starting to look at things differently. But honestly, for me, 60 was a big one. But I find that it's really important to recognize and go, not only, hey, I'm either happy or upset about this and label it and overgeneralize. I think that's an invitation. When you go, or it might feel a little uncomfortable, welcome that. And so I, at 60, started going, wow, okay, let's look at this. And how do I feel about this? And I used different methods to do that. And we could talk about that today. I could share some of those with you. But I really wanted to. In fact, let's talk about the first one. Then it's not my system, but something called RAIN, where you recognize. That's the first thing. And what I recognized is I had negative self-talk still at this stage. And so I thought, okay, that's something I need a new story. If I'm going to look at, this last third of my life, this last chapter, I do want to every day with beginner's mind show up curious. And I had identified, I had recognized that I had yet again fallen back on an old system that was essentially beating myself up. So once I recognized I had some negative self-talk around ageism, and you could say I was taught that, but that's another topic, right? I just thought, you know what? I need a different story. So I recognized that. And then A was acknowledge it. And I think, oftentimes too, I would dismiss things that other people would find either meaningful. And so I learned how to, through yoga, somatically look at and acknowledge for myself, wow, there's an aspect of suffering going on for me right now. So I recognized and then I acknowledged and I said to myself, okay, this is maybe perhaps something that is bigger than you want to really acknowledge, right? Let's acknowledge that this is big. You're turning 60 or 65 is. And so then you want to inquire into that. There's the I. Recognize, acknowledge, inquire. And it's really just about being curious. Doesn't have to be super serious all the time. You can use different tools, but you want to start spending some time and energy, whether it's journaling or whatever you do to get some self-awareness. And then at the end, you want to nurture either yourself or the process so this loving way to have a little bit of a guidepost to work with. That's the first one I worked with. And it has organically changed and unfolded in the last 5 years. I went out and got a lot of really good books. I started talking to other women, and that's one of the reasons that I was drawn to you, because I had seen that you see the beauty in older women, and not just women, but men. I think, of course, there is, a lot of evidence to there's two different narratives about aging, right? So let's keep it within women, since you and I are here talking as two women. I really wanted to educate myself and radically rethink how I was valuing myself. And I think globally, we need to radically rethink and redesign not only how we value ourselves and each other, but aging. So I bought into all those old scripts. The first book that I went out and got is this one called Crone. Have you read that?
No.
Well, the cover doesn't look very welcoming. Okay. This was a life-changing book for me. It's not that big.
Okay.
And basically there was something that shifted for me. Can't guarantee that maybe this book would for you.
Yeah.
But there was, and if you're not getting something and can feel some kind of shift, then okay, that was good, move on, right? But that one somehow touched me and made me feel very excited about being a crone. Like I was taught, and I've had examples now of ageism. I've had a couple of people on social media try and shame me somehow and call me in a really, I'm taking everything out of context, but try and shame me by calling me grandma while I'm doing yoga. And honestly, at first, I was taken aback. I was like, oh my God, I would love to be a grandma. Why do we see that as
I agree.
something mean to say to somebody, right?
Yes.
So everything started happening for me in a really cool way because I had spent some time and energy and focus. So I think that's the first commitment to yourself, right? I mean, if you're going to dedicate some time to some new growth, whether or not it's daily spiritual practices or some kind of, system, mindfulness or yoga or breathing or something that works for you. I think that was a loving gift that I gave myself. I wanted to recognize this. I wanted to acknowledge it. I wanted to do some investigation and I wanted to nurture myself. And it always hasn't been what I thought. I thought that it would be easy. And it's actually been a little challenging because I had to really ask myself, why are you uncomfortable with this topic? Why are you questioning even, you've had this great, you just said magical life that every year gets better and better for you. What is it? And I really do think it's the scripts that we've been told by our culture, by society, by a lot of different forces from marketing to whatever, right? And I'm sure you talk about this a lot on the podcast. But for me, it was about, okay, to love myself, I'm going to give myself the opportunity to take a deep dive into this. So I really appreciate having a space to talk about it in, because I think once you can articulate it for someone else or for yourself, that also helps.
Yes.
And
but I think it really, I love what you're saying. It really resonates with me. And and it's very interesting because rain, it can, if younger people, it's like any age, this is applicable to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And even if we can parallel, aging with being a teenager or being in some kind of growth stage, that one pops out for people, right? Because nobody goes, oh, I want to go back to those teenage years, right?
No. Yeah.
So I think, that's a good way to look at aging and those awkward teenage years. And awkward doesn't have to be a bad word. I've worked so much on language too for myself to recalibrate and redefine for myself the language that either I'm telling myself or hopefully with other people. And I think that that's important, how we expend our energy and our time and our awareness in a loving way, because then that does then extend out to others. But of course, like we've heard for a very long time, we tend to put others before us, right?
Yes.
And that was valued. well, now is my time. Now is my time to say, hey, this is my time. And how do I want this last third of my life to be? Who do I want to show up as for myself? And I think that's really cool because I don't think that I either had the time, the energy, the skills, the tools, support, the whatever to do it in my teenage years. So I'm going to do that for myself now. No reason to, beat myself up for that or, say shoulda, woulda, coulda, which are all horrible things.
Yes. But I think also too, it's living like purposefully. And I think that's something that I'm noticing as I get older. I live with purpose and things that aren't in alignment with what's important to me or my values or my soul. And that could be people, it could be jobs. I'm just sort of like, no, like I don't want to waste my time on worrying about all these things anymore. Like this is, I'm 60, you're 65. We've got maybe 25, 30 years. And I just want to live them as fully as I can. And I'm sort of tired of those negative voices that we've accumulated over years of living, sort of taking the driver's seat of my life.
And I think the difference is those voices, if once you recognize it, and it is a practice,
yes,
to interrupt that, right? And mindfulness helps with that. But once you have what I see in you, Helen, is you have intention with presence. So that living purposefully is energetically an action, right? So although I find the most peace in practicing living in the now, which is practicing presence or, embodied awareness in the moment. It's a practice. It's not always easy. It's not always achievable. And yes, we get activated or triggered or whatever you want to call it, but it's that return to that to say just what you did. What do I want the next 25, 30 years to be like? How do I want to show up how do I want to live purposely? This is a beautiful question. And some people, like it or not, arrive at this moment either through crisis or the calendar reminds me because I'm turning 65 or something. But instead, I think the beautiful piece is you can make it a practice that, it's a loving way to say, hey, I want to, what are my goals? How do I want to be? And you've taken the do that. Where not everybody stops. They're just, life is hurling itself at them and they're reacting. So what you've done is taken a beautiful, I don't like the word control so much, but you've taken agency. You've given yourself, empowered yourself by saying, hey, I'm asking myself, how do I want to do? And that's what intention is. And then you go out and you do that. Can I take you through something really quick that I do daily and help you do that?
Of course.
All right. So for those listening, if you want, I invite you to close your eyes. And we're going to work through 4 things. Most people can remember body, mind, and spirit, but I'm going to add something else. So first, we're going to check in with our body. Ask yourself, how do you feel, body? And then try and identify somewhere or something or some awareness inside your body. And then say, what do you need from me today? And then the key will be later on to act on that information. So let's move on. After our body, let's check in with our intellect, with our mind. And ask yourself, how are you doing today? Are you scattered? Are you calm? Are you, just elated and can't get grounded? So what do you need today? How is your intellect? Maybe you need something creative. Maybe you need something challenging. Maybe you need something, I don't know. Only you can tell yourself, but you have to listen to that inner wisdom because it is your best advocate. So body, mind, And before we get to spirit, let's check in with our emotional self. Your emotional self, for most people, is somewhere at a younger stage. For me, it's 7. And I ask my emotional self, how are you today, Steph? And I wait for the answer. And I ask myself, what do you need today? And boy, she's always got an answer. Last but not least, let's check in with our spirit. Whether or not this is just energy or light or God of your understanding, whatever that is for you, that is your wise, best self. And I want you to check in with that. Say, how are you today, spirit? How do you feel? Not how are you, how do you feel? How is your spirit? And here's the big shift from the other way that we did body, mind, and emotional self. That spirit has something that you need to know. Ask spirit, what do I need to know today? That check-in, I guarantee you, will radically shift your life. You can open your eyes now. I tend to do this check-in in the morning before I get out of bed, and it's really easy to do quickly. So the keys are check in with your body, mind, little self, and your spirit. And then obviously the big key, like you were saying, living purposefully, act on the action that you've been given. And that will really help you at any age.
Thank you for that. Was beautiful. I actually got a little teary eyed. I thank you for sharing that. I got teary eyed when go to the younger self, because I feel that a lot of us, we've forgotten to do that. And anyone who's had challenges in life, we kind of sometimes abandon that part of us. So that was really beautiful. That was like when I did that, I was just like, ugh. So thank you. That was lovely.
That tells me everything, because tears mean something really, really deep is for you. And thank you for sharing that with me, because a lot of people are not in touch with that or able to reach something that deep that quickly. So it shows you have a deep interior spiritual life. And do you mind me asking how old she was?
Well, you had said 7, so I kind of went to that. And it was interesting because she was like, play.
Aww.
Just play. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love that for you.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So with your yoga practice, did you always is the yoga sort of the thing that brought you on this journey? Or, I mean, obviously it assists in this in many ways. And I think what I love about your book, Yoga Wisdom, is it's so much more than the physical practice. And we touched on this. We touched on this a little bit when we were speaking, when you were with me, and it's amazing how it can guide you and support you and open up things within you.
You're so right. And I'm so glad you have yoga in your life. And I encourage anyone who hasn't tried it to try it, because you have preconceived ideas of what you think yoga is. And you may have to try a couple of different ones to find one that you like. So that's a little bit of a hurdle. I don't want to discourage you with that. But there's lots of different kinds of yoga. And yoga for me is normally seen in the West as a physical practice, which is perfectly fine. But there are 8 limbs of yoga, and the asanas are just one of the 8 limbs. So let's talk about the asanas, though. When you show up at a yoga studio and you go to yoga, if you're showing up because you're just want to hear what is this thing that everybody's talking about, but you get there and you use it as a gateway to develop some type of way of going inward, which is basically what we just did. It was guided. Teacher's going to guide you to this place that eventually becomes Shavasana, the last pose. Well, when I showed up at yoga the first time, I was in pain. I was in physical pain. And I was a 19-year-old person who was having a lot of trouble with my back. Well, luckily for me, I tried yoga and I was hooked on the first day only because I felt a little bit better. So I'm really lucky that that got me to yoga. Other people have, had a friend bring them or, maybe maybe somebody else like a doctor or someone else has said, hey, maybe you should try this, especially for older people, because there's balance and there's equanimity and there's all these other things that you get. I found though, and there's a lot of research to support this, that yoga will enhance so many other things in your life, no matter how you showed up or why you got there. It is a lifelong practice that you can essentially even bring into your life. And that's what they're really seeking. People want to sleep better. They want to lower stress. They have like very simple plans. And if you get there and those things start happening for you, then you can go deeper into all the philosophy and the history and all those things if you want. But I like to try and keep it kind of simple because I think people are on many different paths in the yoga world. And even if the entry point in the West was through the postures, that's fine too.
Yeah.
And the good yoga body's the bonus. I find that what has sustained me over my lifetime and what the other people that I interviewed in my book discuss is that yoga enabled me to move through the inevitable ups and downs of life.
Yes.
Nobody's escaping that. We all come to this wild journey that we on, this life thing through this stage. And like it or not, things are going to happen, good and bad.
Yeah.
Yoga, you can, utilize on the little bit of the ups and downs to bring so many good things into your life. I'm so passionate about it.
I know.
And the reason I'm passionate about it is because it's given me such a great life, and I know it will for you too. But yet, I think now, because it's kind of mainstream, all the things that they've changed with bringing in gimmicks like puppies or,
goats.
Yeah. I mean, these are gimmicks and they're fun, stretching things, but they're not yoga. Yoga is a way to quiet, what's going on as you're there on your mat by yourself and go inward. And it's beautiful. So anything that's external, like music and, all these other things that now we see in yoga studios really have no place in the yoga of my understanding. And I can still go to those classes and get what I need, but it's because I have the background of 45 years of practice. And even if you just go and stretch and kind of quiet your mind, you're still doing yoga. If you connect your stretching movements to your breath with awareness, that's yoga.
Yeah. Well, in your book, you have two of my favorite yogis besides you, Sean Korn and Elena Brower. And I remember Sean Korn saying, and she's, I mean, a lot of people have said this, but she said, if you can change sort of your relationship on the mat, you can take that into your life. And what she meant was, if you're doing a pose and you fall out of it or you're not able to do it, do you get mad at yourself? Do you give up on yourself? Do you cry or do you accept it or whatever it is? But if we can show that compassion and change that narrative, then we can bring that into our lives. And
Absolutely.
and it's such a beautiful way of looking at it. And then the other thing that you said that I thought was interesting about Shavasana, because I find for me, this is a year of stillness and I'm trying to find, more stillness in my life. And with yoga, that's how we finish it, was in stillness. And they say it's the hardest pose for people to do.
So many people are not in their body. What does that mean? I remember the first time I heard that. We are overstimulated. We are overwhelmed. We are performance based seeking beings anyway. So it isn't our normal nature. We've been taught you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you get going, we're doings. What you want to be is a human being. Thank you, Wayne Dyer. You want to be a human being, not a human doing. And same thing, it's a practice. So to me, yoga just helps with that. I love Sean's deep, deep commitment to bringing all aspects of yoga to people. And she says it in such a really amazing way, but she's passionate too because she knows what it did for her and what it's done for the thousands and thousands of people that she's worked with. And
could we talk a little bit about that, about what yoga does? Because I think that you and I touched on this, because I know Sean talks about this too, that for example, when I decided to quit drinking 10 years ago, I didn't go to meetings or anything. It just wasn't my thing. I just went to yoga, and I did restorative yoga. I did hatha yoga, and that's what got me through sort of the first few weeks. And I'm curious. Yeah. And I'm curious with you, like what it is that yoga has sort of helped support you with when you've gone through challenging times, because that's the thing. Like that's, I think, the magic of yoga is that it goes in like a cellular level. It's not just the physical body.
Right. And so let's go back to the body, mind, and spirit analogy. So body wise, yoga activates your parasympathetic nervous system. And that is the system that takes you from either fight flight at the extreme to calmness, or it just brings you into that awareness. So the activation in your brain is a very real thing. And as you utilize the breathing and as you lower the breathing to a pace that matches what you're doing, guided by either yourself or someone else, that's a very real embodied thing. Number two, mind, intellectually too, you can still the fluctuations of your mind. That is the first Yoga Sutra. Yoga stills the fluctuations of the mind. It is an ancient system. It works. It does still. Some people, like Buddhists, will talk about the monkey mind, but same thing. We're living in a very fast-paced society that rewards going, doing, happening, right? Being. And I think without some kind of awareness to say, hey, this is my year of stillness. I'm going to use things to help me achieve that. We're back to what we circled back to earlier is I'm living with intention. I'm acting on that. Yoga helps body, helps the mind. And let's desecularize the woo-woo-ness of the spiritual aspects. But the spiritual aspects for me came from just desecularizing any idea of what that was going to be. So, for instance, yoga came from Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, but it's not a religion. So whatever your idea of spirit or a connection to something of a higher power, I think that's critical. And same thing, yoga has been proven in research and in the longevity of this beautiful lineage that we keep trying to hand down in authentic, beautiful ways. I mean, Elaine is a real expert at how the spiritual aspects can manifest for you a life of deep, deep meaning. And I think that's what we're really seeking. We're seeking connection to self. connection to others, when we're seeking connection to the divine, whatever that is for you.
And how is it then when you were writing your book and all the yogis that are in this, what is there something like some bit of wisdom? I mean, I'm sure a lot of them had it for you, but was there something particular that really sort of stayed with you?
I think number one, I didn't ask people. I asked them how they came to yoga. I asked them about what the practice was. But what emerged very quickly was what is kind of the focus of the book. Everyone used yoga to navigate a challenging time. And that to me was a huge identifier that no one escapes these challenges. No one escapes suffering, but this is a tool that will help you to not only navigate these times, but yet also enhance your life as it is. So let's say right now, everything's great, Steph. So great, I don't have to go to yoga. Well, wouldn't it be awesome if you could also have these other aspects, body, mind, and spirit? Because what you're doing today will inform the rest of your day and the rest of your life. And it is a practice that you can do your whole life. And I find that very appealing too. Other things that you do as you age, obviously we need to lift weights. We do need, to go for a walk. We do need to be in nature, blah, 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 blah. But this one is an anchor that will inform and enhance all those other things that you're doing. I don't know another system that does that.
Well, and even when you were saying that, like the body, where I've been in yoga classes where I start crying or other people start crying and they say like the hip openers for women, they say that's where women hold a lot of sort of their emotion or their sadness. And it is
And trauma.
interesting as and trauma. Yeah. And as you move your body and you release, it's like, what is it that's making you hold on so tight? I would imagine. And then when you can release and just keep releasing, it goes on again, like a deeper level.
Right. And what I think is really interesting about Shavasana is that is called corpse pose for a reason. You essentially die to your old self in the moment. Well, isn't that really what you want to do every day? Because there is no stasis. In nature, you're either decaying or you're growing. So as you let go in the moment or in the day and you drop all those things that aren't serving you, that is one way you can take your yoga from a practice out into your life. All these things we've been talking about today are ways to get something on my yoga mat and then take it off the mat. I mean, that's why Sean's group, Off the Mat, perfect word, because that's the thing that I think everybody wants to know too. If not, then yoga is just a good workout. If it's a physical kind of yoga, not like a yin or a restorative, but even that, yes, it is. That is a physical expression of something that's going to serve you, but only you will eventually let that onion reveal itself to you what that is. So even the check-in that you did in the morning, right? All you're trying to do is go inward, get in your body. And that really is a struggle for a lot of people. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Don't beat
Yeah.
yourself up for it.
Yeah.
It's like people do that, just try to sit and meditate and go, oh, I can't do that. Well, this is a way to help you get to that
Get to
quiet
that.
place. That's why asanas at the end,
Yeah.
right?
So when you're going to be 65, what are I mean, we know what the benefits are of yoga, but do you find, like you were saying earlier, where some people who were runners, as they get older, they find it's too hard on their knees. Do you find that getting older, are there challenges that weren't there for you before with yoga, or is it actually better for you?
Well, luckily for me, I feel like every time I show up on my mat, it's the first time. I don't know how that somehow manifested for me, but that's a beautiful gift. But yes, I started identifying at 60 when I started getting really curious. that my body was yearning for a version of myself that was younger. I was happy being 60, but I had started out in Ashtanga, which was a very physical practice. And I was going, oh my God, do I have to do those rock star wacky poses anymore? Well, I've really done a real deep investigation into that. Am I missing that? Is it my ego? Am I, freaking out about aging? Why is my body yearning that? Well, for me, it was just because I knew I was going to feel good. So then I had to separate that out and go, wow, are you only seeking? Are you spiritually bypassing something that's uncomfortable for you that you really need to get to? And I do think it was. I had to start kind of letting go, but I didn't see letting go in the same way that I had attached that to ageism. I had talked to a lot of people that said, as you age, it's a process of letting go. And I was like, oh my God, that just sounds so negative to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
interpretation. But it's not. It's beautiful. The faster you can let go of something, the faster that opportunity opens up. You make space for something new to emerge. There's what I was talking about with the no stasis. You're either in decay or you're in growth. So I just use yoga to lean into the growth piece while remaining grounded and present in the moment. Does that make sense?
Totally, it does. It does. And do you find people, there are people like you who've done yoga all their life. And then there are people who are now maybe just getting into it or who are listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, I got to start doing yoga. What are the things that you find like wisdom that you could share with people when they're just getting started? Because sometimes it can be intimidating. Or I've gone to yoga and I'm, next to somebody who can do handstands and all these sorts of things. And just, because you can't do that, it doesn't mean you're failing at it. So can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I think first off, not all the studios anymore designate like beginner classes, but I would highly encourage you to go to a beginner's class. I still love beginners classes. So you could do those forever if you wanted. I still love those. Those are deeply meaningful for me. And I need reminders and I need help. So there's the number two. The biggest gift you can give yourself is introduce yourself to the yoga teacher. You'd be shocked at how few people do, and tell them why you're there. Most of them will ask, but I think we've kind of gotten away from that too because classes have been shortened from an hour and a half to an hour. People are coming in. It's almost 50 minutes now. Shavasana's a minute or two. Woo!
And people get up and leave during Shavasana.
Yes. And I've had teachers who do not allow that. They've asked people not to do that. And I've even seen like one time a person had their phone in and they said, hey, I'm a doctor on call, and they're like, okay, we know that that's important to you, but we have to respect the space for everybody else. This is a space. Not everybody does that anymore because they could get fired for doing that. Some teachers, like the teachers in my book, they weren't chosen by how well a name they were or not, but they became a big, well-known name because they hold those things sacred for the people that are there. And that's a huge passion of mine. So when you show up, we know it's courageous. And teachers, all are kind of cut from the same cloth. Yummy, huggy bear, sweet people who want you to love it. But unless you introduce yourself and, hey, this is my first class, how are they supposed to know? So introduce yourself to the yoga teacher. That's huge. And then last but not least, be kind to yourself. It may be hard. They always will suggest, hey, child's pose is available to you. Or if you just want to sit on your mat or you want to lay down. The big key is to not look around the room unless you are trying to how somebody's doing a pose. Look to the teacher if they're demonstrating, but just cut yourself some slack. Just say, hey, today, if I make it through class and I have a good experience, that will be a win. And then just build on that. I try and keep it super simple because people are intimidated because there are people of all different um, um, uh, parts of their journey. And yes, a lot of people can do like these really crazy, wild looking things, and that probably shouldn't be in a beginner's class, but it might look like a wild thing to you to stand on one leg for a minute. And that's your victory for the day. I'm just going to show up. I'm going to be here and I'm going to give it my best, whatever that is. And then, of course, remind yourself, I'm perfect as is. And then celebrate yourself for coming, right? So I think you can take yourself through a little bit of a process of, okay, I came to class. Again, I recognize that this could be good for me. And I'm going to acknowledge, I'm going to try really hard. We're going back to this rain thing. And then I'm going to be curious while I'm here on my mat. And then the last piece, that in, I'm going to nurture myself and celebrate that I came and I did it. And I think if you do that, even if it's every day for the rest of your life, you've given yourself an unbelievable gift of just that hour of quiet and reflection.
And even when you're saying earlier that, there's a big push for women, start doing more weights, which is so important. But I think what I love about yoga, is I use parts of my body that I don't normally. So my feet, for example, like when you're gripping, right? Or sort of you're balancing, you're using these little muscles and ligaments that normally are asleep, So
Right.
that's really important too as we age because, if you step up a curve, if you're doing yoga, you're going to have that strength in your ankles and your feet, even that gripping motion.
Right. And I think it's really important to focus on this right now for aging because yes, at any point in your life, this is awesome. In fact, I started at 19. I wish I would have started at 11, 12, 14, whatever, but it was back in the day. Everybody, it was funny. People thought I was crazy for going to yoga. They thought I was
It
in a
was like
cult.
woo woo. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And like I said, I was lucky. I showed up in pain, but there is, at least here in California, there's schools that even, don't call it yoga, but they're teaching kids this, how to sit for a minute and you know what I mean? And it is yoga, but they are not calling it that, which yay for kids. But as you age, the number one gift I find is I still feel comfortable in my body. So, for instance, like, this awkward comparison to teenage years and aging, right? Just to be comfortable in my body is huge. Number two, we've all known an older person that has fallen, and you can look back and see that's when the decline started happening. So, let's say, for instance, I'm just comfortable and confident in my body. And then I have all these, spatial awareness practices that help me learn how to balance. That's huge. That's everything. And then if you start to feel really good with those balancing things or whatever and start challenging yourself, start applying to this to the rest of your life, what you're going to find is this is my healthy partner that I'm going to age with. This is my tool that I'm going to utilize. And then you can start designing like what you need in an ever evolving way. Meaning, as I age, I'm not doing like hip movements the way that I used to. And so I decided to add dance to my life. I go to like this amazing, cool cardio hip hop class on Sundays. Other people go to Zoom. Other people go to stuff because even though I could get it through yoga, I found like yoga informed me. Hey, you need to have fun. There's that 7-year-old telling me, oh my God, it's fun. So this class I go to, it's like being at a club at 2 a.m. without all the bad stuff, right? It's just fun. And then I take that back into my yoga class and I'm like, oh yeah, there's that, you know what I mean? I'm not doing twists enough. So I start to teach myself, oh, I knew those yoga poses where I do twists. So sometimes if I'm just stretching and I'm not going to yoga that day and I'm just, yes, I call it yoga, but let's say I'm just calling it stretching. I know to do twists. So yes, the yoga is informing my life. It got me to go try a dance class and it has me doing more twists because I know that's going to help me with my balance. So you kind of, connect the dots and Rubik's Cube your own kind of practice that if you then connect your breathing to your movements, you can do yoga by yourself at home. I thought that I go to yoga classes to not only check in with my teacher and still to this day, like I can do triangle pose and I'm never doing it right. Well, it's because I had a hip replacement. That's okay. Right. There is no right or wrong. I'm doing my version of triangle, but it helps me sometimes too to have a teacher. And I don't look in the mirrors if there's not mirrors in the class. Not every yoga studio has mirrors, but it allows me to do that at home by myself too, which is really cool. So the more that you can make it a part of your life, which I don't want to intimidate you with that, but same thing, that little check-in this morning that we did it. You closed your eyes. You went inside. You're asking yourself, right? So that was yoga. What we did was yoga. Yes, go to a class. Yes, learn how to balance. Yes, activate your parasympathetic nervous system, lower your stress, sleep better, all those things. But what we did this morning by checking in with ourselves is yoga. And it can inform any minute of your day. Sometimes people have to somatically, I have to put my hands on my heart. I have to remind, go in. And what better place to do that in my heart? Sometimes I'll place my hands up here on my third eye to remind myself, you're a spiritual being. Sometimes I'll do a check where I say, hopefully my mind, my speech, and my heart are in alignment today. I sometimes have to physically touch myself to bring myself in my body because I'm very high energy. But I know because of yoga. I know that because I've done yoga. I didn't know that before when I was a kid that had trouble, sitting still. People would always say to me as a kid, oh my God, you have ants in your pants. Well, I needed some grounding practice, right?
Yes.
Yoga gave me that. Not somebody telling me, oh my God, you have ants in your pants. It was yoga that gave me that. So it'll give you lots of
It does. It really brings you back into your body.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, in yoga, and I won't go into the Sanskrit or the philosophy of it, but it removes the veils of ignorance to show you that you're perfect as is. We somehow take on all these either cultural scripts or negative, talk or whatever it is. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the way that you want to look at it, we do have this little bit of a default that will go to, these old patterns, these old shaming statements, or these old things that no longer serve us. So there's the letting go. When you're in Shavasana, die to that old self. And in any moment, you can do that yet again. In any moment, you can stop yourself, put your hand on your heart and say, I'm perfect as it is, or I'm safe, or whatever message you need to tell yourself, and then focus on your breath. I found when I was chopping vegetables that I would hold my breath and I would say, what's that? Well, yoga showed me that I was holding my breath. I had old trauma and old things that were, impacting my life in ways that I didn't know because I wasn't in my body. So when I said earlier, so many people have trouble being in their body, It's for a lot of different reasons. Gift that you can do for that. I don't care what age you are, what kind of physical condition. I'm an able-bodied practitioner, but I have so many friends who practice in wheelchairs or practice from their bed or practice, in any way that serves them because they like doing the poses. And there's different patients that you could do depending on your skill level, but we all have skills. And I like the idea that it meets you where you're at. And that's what's beautiful about yoga too. So that first day that you're there, yoga will meet you where you're at if you allow that. And if you're kind to yourself about it.
I like that. I like that. It'll meet you where you're at.
Yeah.
It's almost like mirroring back to you, right?
You just said it when you were talking about Sean earlier, and you said, "Ooh, I can go in and learn about yoga is a mirror to the self."
Yes.
Period. You're right. If I'm irritated today in yoga because that person in front of me has her phone and she got up and left, who's upset right now? She's not. I am. Yoga showed me that, right? But until you start asking yourself those questions, you're like, "Ooh, okay. I learned that here on my mat. I didn't learn that driving in traffic." Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes, I
get
totally know what you mean.
Angry. I learned that in yoga because that's a safe place for me to go inward and ask myself those tough questions. Do I want to be that angry person? Ooh, if not, what do I do about that? So here's the other beautiful piece of yoga that Patabi Joyce said is do the practice and all is coming, meaning just go, just show up. Even if you don't have any goals, just go, just show up and it will meet you where you're at and work for you. I promise that. And what's really cool is I can say that promise with confidence because we have done some studies now in the past 25 years, and the evidence-based practice now is growing. They've studied everything from meditation practitioners who utilized yoga to just people that use mindfulness practices and connect their awareness to their breath. So I think at some point in time, yoga in the West too might just be called mindful movement. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I know it's yoga. I'd like it if you'd call it yoga. But yet, if you don't feel comfortable, and a lot of people don't, if you don't feel comfortable with the idea that there's some type of, woo woo or religious, even though I'm telling you, it's not a religion, there is a way to make it work for you so that you can age in a way that will serve you in every aspect of your life, not just your body, mind, and spirit. You're like, if I can let go of that angry girl on the mat because that person got up and left, I'm going to go home and be a nicer person to my partner. I'm going to show up better at the grocery store, standing in line. I'm going to be, better with my neighbors. It really does radiate out into the community. And I think that's really, really important because we are in this global state of heightened awareness that we're, we're not by ourselves and we don't agree with anybody anymore. And go into moral and the ethicals. That's the yamas and the niyamas in yoga are a right way of living. And I just encourage anyone, if you want to get to those pieces, they're all there. There's yoga teachers that can help you with that, either online or in person. I prefer in person. I need the energy of the room. I remember when I first did yoga and there was always some older lady in the room, and I just, I'm that woman. I'm the woman in the room, been there forever. And I love being the crone.
You're the crone. I love that too.
Title now. I like that. I am the wisdom keeper and I am trying to be an elder now. I'm trying to pass on those things and celebrate being 65, celebrate the wisdom that I have gained from yoga only because I wish that somebody would have, interrupted my little day at 15-year-old when I was shaming myself or not comfortable with my body. So I like it that people have this mainstream idea of what yoga is, but you can make yoga whatever it is. But let's just something simple like that. It's a mirror to yourself. If you're willing, interested, it's there.
Yeah. I so appreciate, I mean, there's so, there, I feel like I'm going to listen to this episode a few times because there's so much in it that you have shared, and we've only just scratched the surface. But I thank you so much for sharing this. I thank you for doing this book. I would encourage anybody to get this book. I'm only halfway through it, but I do love it. I
Oh,
do
I'm so
love it. And
well. I hope it serves people by the
yes.
book, because I was just so blessed to be able to meet all these wonderful yoga teachers, and they are in your neighborhood now. It doesn't have to be a big name, a brand new person. I've gone to yoga teachers who have just started practicing, that are old souls that are there, that want to help you. They all become a teacher because they want to share this beautiful gift with you. So try it.
Okay. And I would like to say to our listeners that I'm going to have all of your, excuse me, contact information in the show notes. So
Awesome.
if they want to find out more about you or about the book, that's all there. Before we say goodbye, is there any little bit of wisdom or any message that you would like to leave with the listeners? I mean, you've left us with a lot of wisdom, but do you want to add anything before we say goodbye?
I think to trust your intuition is everything. I was not taught that. I didn't understand what that meant. And now I know that beautiful, wise voice is there looking out for me. We feel so alone. You're not alone. Yoga can be there's a community of yoga people too, but I trusted my intuition. I reached out. I flew across the country to meet you, and I'm blessed beyond measure to have you in my life, because I trusted my intuition, which led me to you. And I just thank you so much for letting me talk today, because I just feel so lucky that you're in my life. And yoga essentially gave me that. So
Yeah.
I just feel really lucky. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going to come and visit you and do some yoga with you. That would be lovely to do. And just on a final note to our listeners, I am so grateful that you joined us today. And with this conversation, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and just keep moving towards your truth. Until next time.